my sin upon his shoulders. Ashamed, I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything. No gifts, no power, no wisdom. But I will boast in Jesus Christ, his death and resurrection. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart. His wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from his reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart. His wounds have paid my ransom.
Next year's budget a little bit. So if there's any questions, we can deal with those. So thank you.
us.
Make sure everybody can hear all the eloquent words that you say, Dennis.
Speak out your mouth.
Well, we hope and pray that you can say, just as we are this morning, it's been a great morning to be together in worship. Thank you for joining us online. If you are coming back from the first service to join us for the business meeting, we want to say welcome back. It was good to see you all this morning. We will be getting the business meeting rolling here in just a couple minutes, but just to start off this morning, we need to give you guys a few instructions on how this business meeting will play out, because we need your all's interaction, we need your all's engagement, and we'll be able to best serve and hear from one another. The first thing, we are voting on the 2021 budget, and you can find that one of two ways. Here in the section above, there's a link that says resources. If you click that resource tab, it will take you to another link that has the budget. Or I'll provide it here in the chat section when the time is right. The second thing we need you guys to do, we need you to engage with us throughout the meeting so we can best know who is watching, and our deacons can make sure that all of our members are present. So what I need you to do is to put your name and anybody who else is watching who's over the age of 18 and a member. So for example, for my house, I would put Scott McClure and Katie McClure. We need to know who's watching so we can best keep track of everybody. And throughout the meeting, we will allow you guys to offer questions, even online. So what I need you guys to do is, if you have a question, you'll be chatting with me, just put in the chat section your question. If somebody else asks the same question, we'll try to make sure that happens, and we'll make sure that it's answered one way or another. We'll do our best to get to every single question, but hang tight with us, be patient with us as we are doing this, because this is going to be very different. But I'll be in the back with a microphone. I'll ask you a question when the time is right, and hopefully somebody will answer your question. If at any point there's a question that's not answered and you want some answers to that, feel free to contact a pastor or any staff member by email. We would love to chat with you and love to answer your question. And then the last thing is for the vote. As we vote on the 2021 budget, what we need everybody to do is, again, let us know who is voting yay or nay. So for example, I would put Scott McClure yes, Katie McClure yes, unless she votes otherwise. But that's what you need to do. So when we come to the vote, we'll ask who says yes. You just type, and we'll allow time for you guys to chat, and then the deacons will tally it up, and we'll move on and move forward with our meeting. Thank you for being flexible with us. If you have any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat section. You can just chat with me. I would love to answer your questions for you this morning. Let's have a great time in this business meeting together.
All right, it's 11:30. If I could get everybody to grab a seat, and we will look into our 2020 business meeting. The first thing that we get to do is we do a business meeting is we check for a quorum, but I'm going to change. We're going to pray first. Let's pray. Dear God, thank you so much for a body of believers that we can come together, and not only are we friends, but we're also brothers and sisters to help one another through this weird life that we live here on earth. And as we've had this COVID thing going on and all the different problems that we run into, we know that the person sitting an aisle over now still prays for me to help me make it. That's what family's about. And we give you the glory and the praise for that. As we get ready to go into a business meeting, Lord, we ask us to all have open hearts, open minds, and a willingness to work together to do what's best to make your kingdom grow here. We thank you, Lord, for this day, and we thank you for giving us this opportunity to be together. And we ask this in your Son's name. Amen. So, we get a check for a quorum, first of all. So, since we don't want to pass paper around, I'm going to have you raise your hand. If you're a member and you're here, let's raise our hands high, and our deacons are going to count. And if you're online, type your name in the comments, and we've got a deacon back there counting that too. What we do this for is we have to have a quorum. We have to have 75 people. And with COVID here, that's 75 in this, or a combination of what's in the room and what's online for us. Now look around the room as everybody's arms getting tired and see if our deacons have made a count. And we're happy we created deodorant. Especially in that corner. All right, I think you've got the interior in the room counted. And we're looking online now. Just to let you know, I guess as we look forward, if we don't have a quorum here, we're still going to discuss the budget amongst here. We'll be recording it. And then our boards are going to have to get together and find out what we can do. We might end up doing an online vote. We might go door to door. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far yet. We could have a giant Zoom meeting. Everybody with kids know what Zoom's like with teachers and everything. That's awesome. My work, we use Teams. We had 3,600 people on a Teams meeting the other day. I didn't even know you could do that. 3,600. So it was weird. It was more like one person speaking and everybody else has got their cameras off and playing on their phones. We got it. We have a quorum. I got a thumbs up. That's awesome. That is awesome. So we will move forward and we'll call for a vote here in a little while. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is our board members. With us having a COVID the way it is, I think our board, I know the executive board might have met 3 times this year. So what we've asked board members that, what do you call it, their terms expire. I hate using that. But board members whose terms have expired, we've gone to them and asked them if they will stay on for another year to cover this next year. And if not, then we'll bring those board members up. I think Tony's got some of them for us right now. I'll let you all step back.
So we don't have any slate of officers to bring to you for what Dennis is saying. So we have a handful of people who are set to, their terms, they were set to expire in 2020, but their term was set to expire in December 31st. So we have asked them, those individuals, if they would stay on through 2021, because we're living in a weird time. Those people have become acclimated to the weirdness of the time. So if they're going to stay on, then we'll just extend their term for a year. That may mean that we have to have a few more trustees added at the end of 2021. But instead of throwing somebody new into the mess, into the way that we're doing business now, doing that. So the executive board decided to do that. If somebody says no, then the executive board will do a nominating committee and fill those slots as needed. So instead of trying to get somebody, it's sort of like public debt hiring right now, and you don't go to the office you haven't been to the office since you've been hired. And we didn't want to put somebody into a weird scenario that if we could just do this. So executive board discussed it, and have approached members about it extending for a year if need be. So. Okay. All right, next thing is for the budget. If you have your sheet, I just want to walk through some of this with you. I know some of you have questions. Hopefully we can take care of some of those questions just by a little bit of discussion about it. So if you have the budget, and just to look through the items, let's start right at the beginning. You'll see the gray areas are areas where there has been an increase. So the first one you come to is church office supplies. Now, we are not buying $6,000 worth of pencils or pens or tablets. Church office supply is where all of our online giving fees come out of. So every time somebody gives online, whether it's for a retreat when we had those, or whether it's for a weekly tithe, the online banking fees associated with that transaction goes into office supplies. So that's why that number is large. That's why it needs to be larger. So that is why that is being increased. That's just where the finance board felt that those fees should come from. So that's where all of our online banking fees come from, is that line item. So instead of running a negative in it, we want to increase that amount so that it looks more close to actuality in that. So I believe that's the only number that changes there. Down in mission giving, you'll see that there, by Kyrgyzstan, 20 schemes in Malawi, that all of those amounts have bumped up. And now we have to go back for a little bit of a history lesson. A couple of years ago, we started working with these three individuals or organizations, and we were committing to them. We didn't commit for like 5 years or anything like that, but we committed to them. And then a couple of years ago, we did a special campaign where we gave every member, everybody who participates here, the opportunity to give toward debt reduction or missions, or here's extra money, you use it for what you want to. And so last year's budget reflected the amount that we still had some of that missions committed money on hand. So last year's budget is there in the left-hand column. So it shows that Kyrgyzstan, 20 schemes in Malawi, each got $5,000. In actuality, we used the money that we already had in an account to pay the other amount. So that 10,000, and 7,500, that's actually the amount that we have committed to them since the beginning. It's just that last year we had that missions money set aside and in hand, so we didn't put all of that money in the budget. So we're not increasing our support to these three mission partners, but it's an increase in this year's budget. Okay, so those three missions, that raises our mission giving area up a little bit. The next increase, and it's hard to sort of see on mine, is down in the middle of the church mission section. It's Williamstown blessing in a backpack for $5,000. You may remember a few years ago we did a blessings in a backpack. It served children in Belpre. It's because one of our members came to us with a heart for that, and the church decided to assist her in that mission. Well, now that we're not participating in that anymore, but this year we were given an opportunity to help serve kids in our community where the church is situated over the weekends. So there's three churches, Brett? 3 churches and some other organizations that are working together to make sure that our Williamstown students have adequate food over the weekend, because so many of a large chunk of our families depend on breakfast and lunch at school for good nutrition. So over the weekend, they do not have that. So this year, when we were approached with this, I went to Brett, I went to Scott, I went to Gretchen and said, hey, this is not in our line item. This is not in our budget now, but because we're not doing some of the things we normally do this year, do you have money that we could assist them with this year? So we did, but we wanted to make it a permanent part of what we were doing, taking care of our community, being a good neighbor, hopefully opening some doors for Jesus a little bit. So that's what that is. And Brett is actually sitting on sort of the advisory council team that helps with that. So I took it to the Deacons Executive Board and had it included in this for the church to hopefully it will become a normal part of our normal missions giving in our area. So that is what that increase is. If you flip the paper over, the next big section is in the executive board / personnel area, and you'll notice that all the salaries went up there. This team, as it is today, has been together for 3 years, and over those 3 years, there's not been an increase, a cost of living increase. So looking and doing some research, the average cost of living for those giving is just above 3%. Since we haven't done this for multiple years, we went with 3.5%. So that takes everybody. That covers all of our full-time staff and part-time staff. It bumps that amount up. If I'm doing math right, around $11,000. The next section down in employer costs. That is just, we were told that there's going to be, is that a 9%, Jennifer? A 9% increase in health costs. So that is why that number went up. Then the only other section, unless I'm missing something, is in the utility section, where it went from $900 to $1,400. That's because we have to do right now a lot of online stuff with our services, and we continue to do that even after COVID's pandemic is over. And what we found out is that we had all the, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but we had all the download speed that we needed, but when we went to upload our services, it would be okay at the beginning, then it would just gradually get worse and worse. So we needed to increase our internet speed and ability. So that's the reason for that increase. So here, let me give you just a little bit. And this was supposed to be Jill Wilhide up here as our finance chair, but she sounds like she died 3 days ago. She doesn't sound very good, so I am sort of happily filling in for her today. But take you back a little bit, some of the reasons we feel that we feel in a good spot to make this increase is because at the end of 2019, we had brought in about $50,000 over our giving. And then as I've tried to convey from the pulpit and in emails this year, even through this pandemic season, the church has been giving either at the level of last year or over the level of the last couple years as far as our budget. So right now we're sitting about, I haven't checked the last couple of weeks, but right now we're sitting at about 92%. And that's where we were the year that we brought in a lot went above, because November and December have been big months historically for this church. So with that above budget from 2019 and just tracking our budget this year, that's why I felt confident recommending some of the increases to the finance and to the executive board. Now, what happens if this continues? Well, we do like we always do, and we watch our spending, but we also, I think this will come up because it usually does, we also, we have some stores that if we need to, in our checking account right now, there's $355,000 in our checking account. There's $144,000 that's in our building payoff that goes to so we can pay more than our regular on the loan. And then there's about $154,000 in savings. So should we not make what we need in 2021, we look at how we spend on a day-to-day, and we have some of those storehouses as well. So do you want to entertain questions on that now, or?
I think let's go ahead and
That's true.
Oh, I'm loud, sorry.
Okay.
Please make sure that if anyone says anything up there, we need to repeat it back so
Okay.
online can listen.
So Brett brings up another thing. Last year we had this big expense of air conditioning that they all decided to quit working at the same time. So we had to take money out of savings, I believe, in order to save that, to replace. If you notice, on the back in the trustees, the last line item in the trustees, and this is what Brett was bringing up for us to point out, is that we want to, we've looked at the cost. We know the cost firsthand of what new air conditioners cost, and we know how long they're supposed to last. So we've started budgeting. That's what that $6,500 is there in the new equipment / future, so that in the future when an air conditioner breaks, we don't have to go back and we don't have to take from savings. We have this line item, this account that has been building over the lifetime of those units. So that's one of the things that to point out as well, that we're trying to budget for future repairs or even catastrophes a little bit. So. Okay, so what we're going to do, if there's questions, give your question and I'll repeat it so that everybody can hear. And if somebody has a question that's online virtually, type your question into the chat bar, and then Scott will raise his hand or throw something at me, and then he'll read your name and the question that you have, and then we'll address those questions together. So I'll do my best to answer. Jennifer's here. She's the keeper of all knowledge when it comes to finances, so we may rely on her if I don't know the answer, or if we have to, we'll say we'll get back to you on that. But open the floor for questions. Gary Sampson. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but last year Gary Sampson asking about the custodian line item in the executive board section. It seems to be a bigger increase. It's 10% it seems to be closer to 10% rather than the 3.5%. Okay, the reason for that is last year we didn't budget enough for that. When we were turning in budgets, I think we didn't get that number changed. So we went over that line item this year based on the numbers of hours that we knew Brian and Rebecca were going to work. So that isn't a 10% increase for them in their pocket. That's a bump up in what that salary number should have been, and then a 3.5% cost of living on top of it. Other questions? Dave Medley? Dave said that people on boards are awesome.
That being said, I know that in 2019, because we incurred costs of the roof, there's some HVAC issues, the loan maturing from PNC, that there was a lot of work. I'm not discounting anything that anybody has done this year, or the different kind of work that it was this year. But there was a lot of work done to our budget and how we look at it. Based on actual money that we bring in. Did we do anything as far as zero-based budgeting? Because a lot of this looks like it's arbitrary and copy and paste it from the year previous, and there's actually no justification from going from 2020 to 2021.
Well, yes and no, because of the work that was done in that year. He's saying last year in 2019, in putting the budget together, that we used something called zero-based budgeting, where you justified all the expenses. So if we needed this, so we moved toward that. And it doesn't seem to be in this one, correct? Is what you're saying? Okay. So because this is the year it has been, and because budget boards haven't been together, and what we plan to do in 2020, we plan to do in 2021. Remember last year we made a big push to make it personal. We wanted to make an impact. The few years before, we made big steps in our international mission endeavors. And last year, and in 2020, our focus, we increased things to focus more intently, not to the neglect of international, but to do some stuff in our own town. So those things are still there. So that's why a lot of the numbers just carry over dollar for dollar, because we didn't get a chance to do a lot of those things this year. And then the only increases that we increase were either staff, a new ministry opportunity, or natural cost of things being more expensive. So, Dave Medley.
Looking at the salary and benefits package as a whole, there's an increase. There's also almost a 10% increase in health insurance. Now, which staff does that include? How many staff members are included in the benefit package?
So health insurance, all of those areas. So Dave wants to know which staff members are included in the health insurance section, the employer cost section. So that makes up that $96,000 almost. So that would be senior pastor, executive pastor, children's director, student pastor, and financial secretary. 2 years ago, the finance board looked at different, I believe 2 years ago, looked at different plans, and they decided not to this year.
So the financial secretary has a salary of roughly $4,000.
I'm sorry, so, back up. Treasurer and administrator, I'm sorry. Yeah, the financial secretary, no. I'm sorry about that. The treasurer/administrative assistant does. 5. Dave Medley.
Okay. In this year, people in this church, people outside the church, have endured a lot of hardship, lost jobs, lost business. Was there ever any thought? Does the church pay 100% of the benefit cost to staff?
Yes.
Has there ever been any thought for the staff, if you're asking for a raise, for the staff to incur some of that raise in insurance?
All I can answer, so he's asking with the season that we're in, and people losing income or income being decreased, and the proposed raise in staff salaries and the raise in health insurance, has there ever been consideration of the employees paying a portion of that premium for that? I know in the past they have talked about it, and at the time they decided that then was not the time, and then it was not, as far as I know, it was not a matter of conversation among the finance board this year. Not yet.
So, does the SBA think that it may be a good idea or not a good idea to raise people's salary when we receive federal funding to release them?
So the question of the $55-ish thousand that we received, 53, okay, that we received from the Payment Protection Program early, that is not included. It's not reflected in our tithes and offerings. And that was for a specific time, and now Jennifer's just waiting to hear how we approach forgiveness. And that was for that specific time. I can't answer the other questions about what the SBA recommends.
One last thing, because you answered the savings projection for new equipment in the future because of the roof and HVAC issues that we have. In line 5852, repairs and improvements under trustees.
Okay.
That number included HVAC unit this year. I think it was planned to replace one at the beginning of this year. Did we replace one, or we plan to replace it in the future? And this year, this coming year, replacing another one, but can reduce that by, I think it was $11,000.
Okay, so he's asking that in the trustees section under 5852, repairs and improvements, that last year, that the $25,800 included the cost of repairing, or for this year, replacing a unit. Did we replace it, and is that included in for 2021? Jennifer, I'll have to look to you for an answer to that because I don't know. Okay. Are there any trustees here that could help with that, the answer of that? Um, For those that are online, we are just talking about whether the 2020 replacement of a AC unit was included in the budget or whether that was always intended to be taken from savings. So we're trying to find the answer to that. So there's no trustee here who knows an answer. So Dave, what?
Brian Flanagan is online, and Brian, chat at me if I'm wrong here. He says the unit was replaced. Is that what the question was going back to? And others have been repaired, or others were repaired? Is that?
So the question we need to answer is in that 25,837 for 2020, was a unit budgeted in that? And if it was budgeted and there's not a plan to replace it this year, should not 2021 be reduced by $11,000? Okay, we will come back to that because I think Jennifer just left to see if she could find some documentation on that. So Ryan Smith. We're going to have to wait. Ryan Smith asked about the other income that the church has from Parker's Playhouse or building use. I might be able to conjecture an answer to that, but let's wait for Jennifer to come back in the room so she can answer that correctly the first time. So, Scott, online question?
Brian also just specified in the chat it was budgeted and it was replaced. That was his follow-up to the conversation previously.
Okay, was budgeted?
Was budgeted. And it was replaced.
Okay, let's wait for Jennifer to come back in and see what she says about that as well. Okay, any other questions in the room? Sue Kuhn. Jennifer, Sue Kuhn asked, what's our average online fees per month? So the answer was it depends on the payment and the payment amount because it's different for credit cards or bank transfers. So it's anywhere from a couple percentage points to more. Okay. Any other questions in the room? Okay. Scott, any questions online?
The only thing, and it's hard to keep track of where these were, so I'm just going to go back and, does the budget show year-to-date tithe of where we are currently?
question was, does the budget show year-to-date ties and where we are? The budget itself does not. The unofficial one that I keep week to week shows us at between 92 and 93% of our projected giving, which is where we were last year, and then November and December increased quite a bit.
And to follow that one up, same person, can you update on PPP received and spent, if you haven't already?
So PPP was received, and we could use it for salary or for building-related things. Jennifer tracks that, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but that has been used for its appropriate reasoning, either in salary, and then Jennifer, was it a little bit that went over into other, like loan payment, or what do we use that for exactly? And we use it some for the interest on the mortgage. Okay, so we use that for staff salaries and for interest on the mortgage. Now we are just waiting to hear from the bank exactly how we go about having that forgiven. There's some talk that under a certain amount that there's no paperwork that will be needed, it's just forgiven, and then other ones that say you have to provide this amount of documentation. So we're sort of in hovering mode right now, and Jennifer talks with the bank quite frequently to see what we need to do, and she's already prepared some of the stuff just in case we need to respond to that. So Jennifer, another question that was asked while you were gone is about the other money that comes in, income that comes into the church, like for Parkers. And the question, Ryan, was what that goes for, and is it budgeted for something? Is that correct? So Jennifer's answer for that question was we use it to pay part of the utilities with the increased use of water and electric, and then the amount that is left we have in a store for when we have to replace carpet or a damaged wall or something like that. Ryan, follow up for that. I don't believe we don't figure it into the budget process. Scott, any other? Over. Dave Medley. There's not an injection, but there is. That strategic plan that was put together, and I'll come back to that, because that strategic plan that was put together, the team saw it, and just in the last week or so, Brett has shared it with the leadership. So they now have it and are mulling it over to see how we're going to tackle that. And Jennifer, yes? So Dave Medley's question was, there was a strategic planning team that met in 2020 that Brett led, and they came up with some objectives. And there's been a document created, a strategic plan document, and just in the last few weeks, Brett has shared what that team assembled back with that team to make sure that he was saying what that team said, and then more recently with our executive board and with our deacons. They are now looking at it to see how we attack that and how we utilize that. Dave's question was, one of the priorities of that strategic planning process was to become debt-free, to pay off our debt. Is that reflected in the budget at all? So and Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the finance board loan payment line, there's $165,000. our loan we had to renew our loan last year. So actually, our payment goes down because of that renewal, but the finance board has decided to continue paying the same amount so that will expedite a little bit. And then we do still have that in that building payoff fund, $144,000 that we're using, and we've been listening to advice on how to do that, whether to apply it as a lump sum, whether to break it up. So we're going to use some of that building payoff to pay about $4,000 extra a month. We've been cautioned against taking and emptying that completely out, that $40,000 out completely because of the season that we're in. So there was a time, if you have on the ledger to budget, you'll notice that, and somebody asked a question about this as they were leaving from the first service, but if you go over to the finance board, you will notice that on that line item that we have paid $92,000 and we budgeted $165,000. So even though this is only through the end of October, that 56% on the edge should be higher, should be 76%, 75% in there. That's because for a period in the middle, of this year, we were paying interest only because of the pandemic. And again, we were following the advice of those who we were working with, because we were in transition mode of switching over from PNC to Huntington. So there was some lag in there. So that's why that number is lower. I think you were going to ask something else. And that's one of the things that's actually been shared with us too, is that. So Dave was just saying about holding on to that money, that $144,000, and not paying that completely down. But when it becomes opportune for us, when that level comes up and what we owe, is to go ahead and just take care of it all at that time. So, hey, Scott, online?
Several people want, if possible, specifics as far as dollar amount of tithes received to date. Where are we actually? Dollar amount. We were getting percentages earlier.
Jennifer's thinking right now. Jennifer does not have that out right now with her, not printed out. What we can do is, if you want to take that 92% and figure out what it should, that's one thing, but we can also include that in communication with the church family this week. We just don't have that with us in the meeting right now. Any other questions in-house? In virtual land? From Dave Medley? Okay, give Scott one more opportunity.
Does the 92% include PPP funds received?
It does not. That 53,000 is above and beyond that 92. It's not figured into our tithes and offerings at all.
Sorry, we have an online. Second. Back to the online giving, and Jennifer, I don't know if you were in here earlier for this, maybe you better know this. Do we get charged a fee for online giving, and what percentage is given online, roughly? Do we get charged a percentage, a flat rate as a percentage, and then do you know exactly what percentage is even given online?
So just ask.
Do you want me to repeat this? So, say it again, please.
There is no specific flat rate fee for online giving. Like a MasterCard might be 3.5%
So first off, based off that, it's not a flat rate, it's based off the actual card provided. It could be a 3%, it could be a 2.8% based off the card itself. Now, as far as the percentage, Brenda, so based off of COVID and the impact that it's had, and we've had to increase online giving, Brenda Watson roughly guesses we've had about 40% as given online. Is the 92% based on the total budget figure or last year's giving?
2020's budget.
2020's budget.
Yeah, so it's based on the $690,689. That's our total budget ask.
How much, and I don't know for sure if this was what Ryan asked earlier, so I apologize if it is. How much money have we brought in as income via giving Parker's rent? Is that the same question?
So I don't have, is the amount on this sheet? Yes. Parker's rent for them to be here is $1,700 a month. Okay, Ryan? So Ryan is asking about the numbers that we're given, with about 40% of our online are given online, and a rough percentage that's about $8,000 a year. Is that budgeted anywhere? That is what that off. The only place that I can answer that to is that office supply line item. Jennifer. Okay, so the conversation was about the $8,000-ish that would be in online banking fees. Jennifer, in talking with Brenda Watson, said that if an online payment is made specific to a ministry, that those online banking fees are attached to that specific ministry. And then building payoff and other more general things come out of that office supply. Okay. I want to return, Dave Medley. Okay, Dave Medley is making a motion that, based off the conversation we had earlier and the answer that we received, that was budgeted and was replaced, that the 5852 line item, repairs and improvements, goes from $25,837 down, what did you say, Dave? $14,837, since we, one, are not replacing, scheduled replace, and two, we are now setting money aside for replacements. So that is the motion, correct, Dave? Okay. That is the motion on the table. Do I have a second? Didn't that come after the second? Okay, Ryan Smith has seconded. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Randy? Bert, can you think of anything any big projects, or Brian online, any big projects? That was Randy Sturm's question. Do we have anything big this year that we did not budget for that might be coming? Okay, over by the bank, on the bank side. So Bert Elliott, who's a trustee, is saying that the landscaping, which is now timbers, but on the bank side of the building, is eventually going to need replaced, and we've been saying eventually for several years. So Jennifer. And, okay. Okay, Jennifer said two things. One is that we currently have a leak in the upstreet area that the trustees are now looking at about getting quotes and estimates and suggestions on how to fix it. So that is an expense. And then you said, when looking at the balance sheet, noticing that we do only have $4,000 remaining in there, but correct, 11 of that was budgeted for an air conditioner. Okay. And going back to zero-based budgeting again, if we know there's an expense coming up, making sure it's included in the budget. So, Scott, did you have something else, or did it get included? Okay, so Scott raises a point about zero-based budgeting and some difference in opinion on it, but also on why would we want to reduce that when we know that if something does happen, we have to have money to cover it someplace. Where should we decrease that amount? Gretchen. Yeah. So Gretchen brought up about the strategic plan again and some possibilities of doing some things to improve some of our areas. The way I'll answer that right now is to go back and say that Brett has given that to our leadership at large, and then they'll decide what we want to do. And that's a multi-year plan. So in my opinion, if we decide to do something with that, that would have to be included in another year's budget. That wouldn't be like, because that would be a big expense if we decided to do that. So Scott.
And based off some of the trustees are throwing in here online. So yes, the leak repair, and they're trying to fix the gutters first. That roughly be around $5,000. They're also talking about replacement of chairs this year or coming year, correct? I know that's been in discussion previously. And then alongside that same thing, I'm just gonna go ahead and ask this question, and I'll let Dave Medley finish what he wants to say. Did we sell the properties this year?
So everybody heard the question, right? Neither property has sold. They're being worked on, right? Okay. So to repeat what Dave said, right now the house is currently under contract and should sell. The lot has been under contract a couple of times and has fallen through for different reasons, so we're still working on it. Okay. Dave? So to repeat what Dave said, as from his experience on the trustee board, that's been around $15,000 for repairs and improvements. So if the trustees want to make certain improvements, one, that should be planned for ahead, or second, that new equipment / future is to cover those when unexpected things may even, when ACs quit and to repair.
And additionally, when you're talking about budgeting, we don't want to fall back into the way that things have always been done, or the way that we always have done things. The federal government does that. We got to spend this money so we can budget that for next year. If we can account for what we're going to spend, we're going to be better off. The idea is to operate in the black and not in the red.
So it goes back to, again, budgeting and making sure you have a reason for the amount of money that is budgeted. And I'll go back just to follow up on that point. I'll go back to, we made very few changes except for these ideas, and we didn't go back and re-justify everything for 2021 because our 2020 plans didn't get accomplished because of the pandemic. So there wasn't a lot of change outside of those few things. Scott?
Has church membership increased, or better put, has total giving units increased from last year to now?
Jennifer? So we have had new members place membership and recently. So I know that we've had additions. What I don't have in top of my head right now are those who have stepped away and are now attending another church. So we have new members. I don't know about how that affects overall membership and giving units. Okay, Joe Leiser? I would like for Scott to get more money because of extra duties, but a lot of the staff has taken on extra duties as well during this time. Not because of, we've tried to do some things in-house, give a little bit extra time off, that type of thing. The question is, first of all, is Chrissy attending online? Okay, so Chrissy Durham asked the question, should Scott receive a bigger increase than 3.5% because of the extra duties that he has taken on this year? I would love to be able to give everybody extra money above that based on the extra duties that they have taken on, because we could say that about a lot of the staff. So the answer to that is, will he receive more than 3.5%? No, but we've tried to do that in different, show appreciation in different ways. Okay, back to the motion on the floor. Motion of an $11,000 cut to line item 5852. We had a second. We had discussion. So, Randy, are you ready for this? Okay. So maybe if Tom or Gary or somebody, if they wanted to help Randy out, or Mike or somebody wanted to help out a little bit with Randy or Ryan just in counting. But all those in favor of reducing the repairs and improvement budget by $11,000 to $14,837.00, please vote in the affirmative by either raising your hand in public or typing yes online. So vote. Okay, Randy, I'll wait for a nod from you. Anybody like to sing a song? Oliver, you like to sing a song for us? No? Magic tricks? Jokes? Okay, for those of you online, we're just waiting for deacons to count your online votes.
Here, I got it. They're coming in, bang, 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 and so we just need to.
Okay.
So just apologize ahead of time for those who are watching online.
If you are online, you have 10 seconds to finish voting so that we can tabulate. So just type in a yes right now if you're voting for. While
Tony,
we're
whenever
waiting,
you feel like it's necessary, you can call the online vote for this reduction. Just say at this point.
okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Online voting for yes is over. Okay, can we come back, Bert, or took your question? Okay, if you are not in favor of reducing the line item by $11,000, please signify that by raising your hand or by typing no online. We are voting no for those who are not in favor of the reduction. We are voting no. Okay, while the deacons are counting and while hands are raised, Bert, did you have a question you were going to ask? Right. Okay. Okay. Just another item as far as expenses that may be coming in is we had a visit from the fire marshal, a regular visit, and there are some things that we have to adjust, like we have fallen in love with extension cords around here. Deacons, did you get the 2 over in the overflow? Okay, you guys are good over. We've fallen in love with extension cords, and we've used them permanently since we've built the stage, and they're not supposed to be a permanent thing, so there's some different wiring issues that we'll have to so just sort of another example. Okay, and we are going to call the no vote online as well. So you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Somebody in person want to know about how long we wait for mail-in ballots. So you had your opening for jokes earlier, Bert. So
41 votes for no, 22 for yes in reducing.
okay, so by a 22 to 41 vote, that motion is defeated. Okay. Before I step aside, any other questions that have popped up about proposed budget? Before I turn it back over to Dennis, the moderator. Right?
All right, since we've made the discussion on the budget. I need to see if there could be a motion to call for a vote. Joe Leiser motions to call for a vote to accept the 2021 budget. And Mrs. Kuhn seconded that motion. So online, fellas, here we go again. So presented before us is the 2021 budget. All those in favor, we're just going to have you raise your hand and type yes in the comment section. Give us a moment while the deacons make their count. Gary, are you done in here? Okay.
We are just waiting online for you all to finish voting.
Scott, you can give me a nod when you may call the online vote. So while we're waiting, I'll share some good news. One of my grandsons was baptized this morning. You know, you almost get more joy seeing your grandkids than you did when your kids were baptized. I don't know. It's just, it really is. Because you know, Ryan, all those days when I looked at him and I thought, either I'm going to kill you or this world's going to, one of the two things. And then you see the grandkids. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we're going to have to stop the online voting now, so we'll see where we're at. Randy took his shoes off, so he's really counting back there.
Yeah, no more online voting for those of you who are watching online. We have to call us now.
Sue Kuhn, if you stop by my house on your way home, I'll give you a dozen eggs. I'll just let you know that. I did find out something yesterday. Did you know if you hook Christmas lights together in a running total and you put 9 of them together, they don't work? That fuse, that little tiny fuse just keeps popping. I don't understand it. So maybe the directions on the box are actually true. No more than 3. Is that right, Brett? No more than 3. But I did find out you can hook 200-foot extension cords together, and that still works. All right, are we caught up there? So we're still not. He's still counting. Sukun said we're going to reach our goal for the Christmas boxes this year. Awesome. Woo. Over 200 boxes. That's awesome. I know. Go ahead, you think? Are we caught up, guys, so I can call for a no vote? All right. Now we have to do it. All those that don't want to accept the budget this year, show of hands and type no online.
Just a clarification for those of you watching online, because they've already been telling me yes or no. You've already answered.
Okay.
They don't have, the people online do not have to.
You don't have to
please don't
revote if
repeat.
you- if
Stop
you already
repeating.
typed
Stop
it.
repeating. Stop repeating.
Okay. So I was calling for in here a no vote. So do I have to report?
It'd actually do us a big favor online if you could just cease texting for a second. $56 yes, 18 no.
So we have a 56 yes to 18 no vote.
And those were being monitored as they came in. If anybody's watching online, looking at the chat section, they may get different numbers, but that is accurate.
All right. Sorry. So that means we accepted the 2021 budget. I'm sorry. All right. Now I get the wonderful thing. Does anybody have any other questions for us as far as, I know people start getting nervous when you ask for other questions. But I just want to thank you for being here at this meeting. And that's what we had to offer. So Robert's rules say that I have to get a call for adjournment. So do I have a motion to? Chamberlain called for adjournment. Do I have a second? Kendrick. Yes? All right, let's go to God in prayer as we adjourn. Dear God, thank you so much for this day. May you bless us with a wonderful day that we can enjoy one another's company and just enjoy being part of your family. Lord, thank you for a body of believers that can work together to further your kingdom. And it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.